Mayor, Town Council. Tonight I'd like to introduce Jill Stewart. She's the manager of the Stormwater section of the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control. We invited her here tonight to discuss the town's new and expanded responsibilities regarding stormwater. She will talk tonight about what federal and state legislation led us to this point, what we as Fort Millions are doing to impact stormwater or the local stream quality. She will talk about the status of the state, region, and local surrounding municipalities and their stormwater programs, and then what are the implications of non-compliance. So with that, I'd like to introduce Jill Stewart.
Thank you, Paul. Mayor Funderburk, members of council, it's a pleasure to be here this evening to give you kind of I like to call this Stormwater MS4 101. I know that you've had it on this topic on your agenda probably a lot lately, so it is a pleasure for me to be here and give you some background on why you're doing this and what's to come with the stormwater program. Let's see if I can work this. What you're looking at here is really how it all began. Back in the 1950s and 60s, there was no regulation of pollution when it came to waste and wastewater. So in the 1960s, this is one of several times when the Cuyahoga River in Ohio actually caught fire because of all the waste and wastewaters that were dumped into it. What that led Congress to do, and this was the picture that I think ended up on the cover of Time magazine, which really shone a national spotlight on the mess we were making of our creeks and rivers and lakes. So in 1972, Congress passed the Clean Water Act. The goal of the Clean Water Act is to restore and maintain the chemical, physical, and biological integrity of our nation's rivers, such as the Catawba River here, Spider Lilies off of Lansford Canal. I grew up across the river, across the Catawba in Lancaster County, so this is something that me personally I appreciate. The Clean Water Act started with those sources that were easy to define and were discernible. Your wastewater treatment plants, your industries, things that actually had a pipe that you could go walk along the river and creeks and see. Those were easy to control. After a while of running this program, it became clear in the early 80s that we weren't making the progress that we wanted in cleaning up our rivers. EPA conducted some studies, there was a lot of research, and Congress agreed and in 1987 amended the Clean Water Act to bring in the regulation of stormwater runoff. They decided, let's not do this all at once. Stormwater emanates from everywhere, streets, roads, roofs, highways, parking lots, parks. Stormwater runoff comes from everything. So they decided, let's phase this in. Let's make it a manageable load to try to control and try to have an impact on water quality. So they brought about the Phase 1 rules. That brought in big cities and towns, Richland County, South Carolina Department of Transportation. That also brought in construction site stormwater, industrial stormwater. Ran that program for a while. That began in 92. And then in 99, they said, we're still not getting what we need in terms of water quality improvement. So we brought about the Phase 2 of the stormwater rules, regulating more and more as time goes on. And even now, EPA has actually just stepped back on another move to regulate additional sources of stormwater runoff. They've decided they want to take more time, research the cost of that before they go and fully develop that program. But it's coming. We're only going to see more and more, I have the distinct feeling. So what we do at DHEC is we implement what's called the NPDES program, National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. The way I like to look at it is the permitting arm of the Clean Water Act. Clean Water Act does all wetlands, streams, you name it, it touches everything. So we do one little arm in the NPDES. We issue permits to a wastewater treatment plant, to Bowater and other industries along the river to discharge into creeks and lakes and streams. And South Carolina is fortunate that DHEC has been delegated by EPA to run the program in that state. And I say fortunate because that allows us as members of DHEC staff to work with industries and work with people like Paul when we're writing our permits, and write permits that are well suited for us and what we need in terms of water quality control. When we look at some of the tasks and things that DHEC does, we have this thing called water quality standards. We've determined what level of protection water bodies in this state need. Most of the streams in this area are freshwater. There's a certain level of protection for that. We're also fortunate in South Carolina to have shellfish harvesting waters, trout streams, outstanding resource waters. Those water bodies have a higher level of protection. So DHEC goes out, we monitor those streams. We then are required to determine which of those streams aren't meeting the standards that we've set. So we have what we call the 303D list. My director likes to call it kind of the sick list. You're in a doctor's office, you're waiting to see what you're in, there's no prescription to fix you. That's kind of what we do with streams that need work, is put them on the 303D list. At some point in time, we're going to come in, we're going to develop a plan to try to make the water quality better. That plan is called a TMDL, Total Maximum Daily Load. I'm going to try to be very conscientious with all these acronyms we like to throw around and try to make sure I tell you what each of them mean. What those two mean for you as MS4s and other NPDES permits is there are more restrictions. If there are documented water quality problems in an area of the state, then we have to put tighter limits and more restrictions in the permits that we write. So kind of the goal is let's try to keep water quality where it is and then make it better where it's already documented to be bad. We've monitored 3,600 sites. Each of the dots you'll see on this map indicates where we've gone out and collected samples. Some of them we have records for 30 years on. We monitor beaches. We collect fish tissue samples to determine the level of mercury and PCBs in those. Down in the coast, we collect samples to tell where it's safe to harvest shellfish. So our activities are varied, and we're looking to get a lot of information out of the monitoring that we do. You'll see here is some of the things that we list as what we call impairments, meaning problems with water body. Fish tissue, I mentioned that. Is it safe to eat the fish? High levels of fecal coliform bacteria. That's very common pollutant in this state. Nutrients in our lakes and streams. Metals, pH. As you can see, the list goes on. And we have over 1,000 locations in this state that our monitoring has determined that the water bodies don't meet our standards. They're not safe for consuming fish. They're not safe for swimming in. If we take a snapshot here in the Fort Mill area, and this may be a little difficult, Fort Mill is there in the center, and you'll see there's some red dots over to the right along, I think that is Sugar Creek, Steel Creek, and down into some of the tribs of the Catawba. Those red dots mean those water bodies are not meeting standards. They are impaired for water quality. You'll see the hatched area in purple. That's where we've already gone out in Steel Creek and developed a TMDL. We've got a plan to improve water quality in that area. And as you can see, it envelops a good bit of Fort Mill. Where we have that fecal coliform TMDL, what we've said is essentially this water body is not advised that primary contact recreation. Canoeing, you're probably good. Swimming in these creeks, I personally don't know that I would, but that's why MS4s and other entities are out there to try to get it back to where our kids can go swimming. Some of the causes, sanitary sewer overflows, I know those have been in the news a good bit up here. Bacteria, dogs, people not picking up after their pet waste, that's a common cause. If you look at some of the impairments over on the creek, You get streams that look like that, where the bugs and critters and what we call macroinvertebrates that live in those streams, they can't thrive. And it's pretty desolate. Some of the causes of that, construction activity, fertilizers that wash off of yards and streams. So, as I mentioned, one of the programs that EPA brought about to try to improve water quality is the MS4 program. I'm not going to go into this long regulatory definition, but pipes, ditches, streams, anything that's owned by a city, a county, or a state government. That's what we at DHEC regulate, is those entities. How do we regulate them? The first group of them that we're regulating is those that are in urbanized areas by the census. Every 10 years we go in, we look at how more urbanized is it getting? Who else are we going to bring into this?